welcome to the Mayor, staff, media, and I don't think we have any public here today apart from those who may be watching us online. Call for apologies. We do have one from Councillor Brown. Would someone like to move we accept his apology? Madam Mayor, Councillor Urquhart, all those in favour, please say aye. Thank you. Extraordinary business. I do have an item of extraordinary business, remits for the LGNZ conference. Now, the reason for urgency for these is just a timing issue, so we will be going through those today. And also, councillors, you should all have a loose page 10 as well, which we will be dealing with, which is just a recommendation from the Mount Up Memorial Hall Board, so everyone should have. No. So we will pass those around. It was just, thank you. So it was emailed out, so, okay, does anyone have any other items of extraordinary business? No? Okay, declarations of interest. Oh, sorry, well, can I just have a mover and a seconder? We take those extraordinary items, please. Councillor Lovett moving. Thank you. Councillor Rawlinson second. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. Councillor Price.
Yes, I'd like to declare a declaration of interest under item 7.2 and public excluded.
Thank you.
And
Councillor,
so am I too.
same item.
Same
Thank you.
item, thank you.
Same there.
Same, Councillor Wilson. Oh, Councillor Lovett.
Yes.
Same.
Yes.
I have to start counting shortly. Another one? Oh,
Yeah.
Councillor Malcolm. Gee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people gone. Ah, okay. All right. We'll get to that later. Okay. Thank you for that. No other declarations of interest. Okay. Confirmation of the minutes. Any additions or alterations on page 1? Councillor Lovett, your light is.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Page 2. Page 3. Okay. If not, would someone like to move, please?
I'd like to move that the report be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Bell.
I'll second
Councillor
that.
Macmillan. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. Okay. Item 5.1, recording and live streaming of hearings. So we all have the report there and have read it. Staff, do you have any other comments to make?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So this report recommends that Council approve the recording and live streaming of hearings. And I just want to point out that there is the hearing next week for the road closures. This would not apply to this if this recommendation goes through, because the recommendation will need to be accepted by Council on the 30th of May. So the trial for live streaming ends in August this year, and following that, further adjustments could be made to the policy if hearings are included. So the options presented are to either offer interrupted recording, which would mean submitters could decide whether they wanted to be recorded or not. The main disadvantage with this is the recording would then be out of context, so the record firstly would be out of context if only some submitters were heard and not others, and those listening at home as well would only receive some of the picture. So the recommendation is to proceed with uninterrupted recording of hearings.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Bell?
No, I would just...
Okay, we'll just see if anyone has any questions of staff. Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So I'm just seeking clarification on the not being used for the road closure hearings. I would have thought that this committee had delegated authority to make that decision, that you actually had the powers. Have I misunderstood?
Through the chair, as we checked this at lunchtime, and we're of the understanding that
this recommendation would then need to go to full council.
So, and it is a recommendation to council. Yes. Okay, I've just had clarification from our committee secretary. If we choose to pass this today, we can do that. So instead of being a recommendation to council, it will just be a recommendation that we pass today, if that is your desire. Yes.
And supplementary to that, this morning we had 2 of the oral presentations on climate change, and we have another 2 planned for the 16th. The suggestion I made this morning, and I think it was confirmed, but it could be reconfirmed now, it would not be appropriate to have 2 heard without live streaming and 2 heard with live streaming. Is that correct?
That would be my understanding, yes, but
Through the chair, yes, that would absolutely be correct. To use this in the future for hearing of submitters, we need to make sure that's very clear on a submission form so people understand the rules of engagement when they choose to be heard by council.
just seeking clarification also, with the road closure hearing coming up, those people have been invited in and we haven't informed them at this stage that it will be recorded. Does that create an issue? Or could that create an issue, should I say?
Sorry, through the Chairman. I think what's the decision, they would clearly need to be informed.
Yes.
But once the decision is made to record hearings, and that hearing would then be subject to live streaming, then under this recommendation, the submitter doesn't have a choice. They don't get to say, well, no, that doesn't suit me. They get to decide whether they'll come to the hearing, but they don't get to dictate the manner in which council records its hearing.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
Thank you. And this morning's submissions on climate change policy actually raises another issue, which I'd like to ask a question around. So one of those submissions was done remotely. If that arose again, do we have the technology so that we could show the submitters or submitter, because all we're watching is on the screen, but for the live stream, would they be shown to those viewers?
I believe the live streaming does show the screens, doesn't it? So they would see that. Is that correct? Ruben, are you? Oh, he's got a microphone. Thank you.
Through the chair, I'm happy to answer that. Yes, we have the ability to switch to whatever feed is currently being presented to the screens. So that would be possible in that scenario.
Thank you. That's good. Any further questions? Okay. Councillor Bell.
Okay, so I'm going to recommend to pass, not to the council. You're going to change it to pass.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
To recommend to pass that council approves the recording and live streaming of council hearings at council and standing committee meetings.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Rawlinson, your finger was first.
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Any further questions? Debate? Madam Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, we often talk openness and transparency, and I think this is, during our trial period in particular, another step forward in that. I'm supportive of the recommendation that has been put. I think the more information we can provide the community directly, the greater they get to see the whole picture. So I'm absolutely in support of the recommendation.
Councillor Price.
I'm also very much in favour of this recommendation on the basis of openness and transparency, but in the trial period I've been very impressed with the numbers that have been taking the time to view what's going on. They don't always watch the whole proceedings, and I wouldn't recommend that people necessarily would, but I think it's been a very successful trial, and I don't think we've identified any downside to it yet.
Thank you. So if there's no further debate, I'll put that motion. I just want councillors to understand that it's not an our recommendation to council. If we decide this today, that is the decision. So everyone's happy with that? Okay, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Would someone like to?
I'll move the activity reports be received.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Oh, 5.2. I've missed my extraordinary item. Sorry. I'll come back to you in a minute. So item 5.2, everyone has a copy of that information? Do we have any, Mr. Chief Executive, this has got your name on it. Does anyone have any questions of the conference proposed remits? Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Could we look at them both separately because they're completely different things? I think I'd like to debate A and B separately.
I'm happy to do that. Are all councillors happy that we take A and B separately?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll obviously look at item A first. So does anyone have any questions on item A? Councillor Price.
So I was actually going to ask a question around Appendix 3 and 4. We do have 4 different remits. Am I right in thinking we're not discussing 3 or 4?
What we were asked to do was check with the Whangarei and Thames Coromandel. They've confirmed that they've got the required number of councils formally supporting them, so there isn't a need for council to formally support it here today. But they'd be interested to hear back on whether council supports them or not.
Okay.
Not formally, but just informally.
Thank you.
Councillor Lovett.
Number A, the regulation on short-term guest accommodation. What are they referring to in that? Is it the Airbnbs or our farm stays? Is it the whole lot of them? Do you know? Because I was just going to ask some questions around like I do the odd farm stay at Ferry Pickle, and we're already audited by the companies, so with what they're trying to do, the regulations, are they going to impose costs on all this?
You have an answer, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I'll try and answer as best I may. The only information I have is what is in front of us, but what I'm reading is, in the advent of online list and payment platforms like Airbnb and Home Away, I imagine the answer to your question is yes, that they're looking at all in-house accommodation. That would be my guess. And what we're doing today is Christchurch City Council are looking for support to put forward a remit to Local Government New Zealand. So even if we support the remit, it doesn't mean we have to support, if we support the putting of the remit, it doesn't mean we have to support it at Local Government New Zealand. We're purely putting the matter up for debate.
That's all right, because I was just considering, like some of these companies actually audit the hosts, so you don't want more layers that are going to put more cost on and I think that needs to be portrayed through, because that will kill it.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councillor Lovett, could I just remind you though, perhaps Councillor Lovett, I understand that you do have homestays, but at the table today we're just talking about whether us as a council support another council in applying consistent regulation across the sector, is the way I'm reading it.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I do not favour this. I don't even favour us supporting it. It's a part of accommodation that is at reasonable cost. I mean, if there's a big concert, say in Dunedin, people can lease their house for the weekend. If they're going to have to be registered with the council and pay most likely increased rates because they'll be rated as an accommodation venue, which is a different rating system to a private house. I think when you go to Hanmer, there's a lot of houses there, people rent out their holiday homes at a reasonable rental. We're going to kill that sort of thing in the bud, because it provides a accommodation place for families at a reasonable cost. So I'm not in favour. I'm not in favour of us being in favour. I just would be against the District Council supporting this remit.
Thank you. Councillor Price.
I just want to reiterate what the Mayor said, which is that we are voting in favour or against having the remit discussed at the LGNZ conference. I don't see any problem with having that discussion, and in which case we should support and become one of those 5 councils that do.
Just for clarification, these remits will come back to us, won't they, as a full list once they've all gone through, and then we will instruct the Mayor on how we would like her as our representative to vote at this conference. Is that, give our opinion, shall I say?
That is what we have done in the last 2 years. It's what I intend to do. However, I still reserve the right that if there is a persuasive argument on the day to the contrary, I will come back and report to you on any change.
Good. So, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I'm in favour of the recommendation, to be quite honest. I'm Airbnb at home, and I'm quite happy to go through this.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question of our Environmental Services General Manager, please?
Certainly.
So through you to Jane. Jane, the Christchurch City Council have put down some data about the number of homes listed. By chance, do you have any information about what's happening in our district?
I don't have any official figures, Mr. Chairman, through you, but certainly we did do a count up of how many were on Airbnb. I can't remember that figure now, but we also counted up the number of motels, advertised bed and breakfasts and all the rest of it. So somewhere floating around, we do have numbers. They might not be 100% accurate, but they would be very, very close.
Thank you.
Supplementary, perhaps Councillor McMillan is normally pretty fast on the Google, but I did have a look this morning, and on Airbnb I saw 81 rentals in Ashburton and 218 in Methven, but I stand to be corrected.
I haven't. I've done a little Google search, but I can't tell you numbers, but when you do Google Airbnb in Methven, you do get quite a few motels, lodges, etc., who are advertising on there as well. But I do know that there are a number of houses, especially along my street, that do Airbnb, and some of them are just rooms, some of them are whole houses. It does have an effect on the motels and the other businesses in town who are paying the pan tax. So again, I think that this should go through to the LGNZ conference for this.
So, councillors, at this stage, I have no recommendation. No one has moved this at this stage. So, Councillor Brown.
Well, I'll put my neck out. I move the recommendation 5.2.2, number A, the regulation of short-term guests' accommodations.
Councillor McMillan.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, any further debate with Councillor Revley?
The pages aren't numbered, but the suggestion on these is where they're going to head for is pretty appropriate. The first part of the B&Bs, what do they call it, is convene a working group to put something together, and then when you flick over into the drinking water, again it's a recommendation that somebody takes this a wee bit further, so we're actually informed with facts. So even though I don't like some of what I read here, without more information, it's my opinion against everybody else's. And since I very few times have an opinion, I think we should just let this matter go on so it can be looked at.
Thank
you. I
you.
can read it.
Thank you. Any further questions or debate? If not, I'll put that motion just to be clear that it is only option A at this stage, the regulation of short-term guest accommodation. All those in favour, we support the Christchurch remit, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, item B. Does anyone have any questions?
Again, the suggested actions is what you really need to read. And if you're against those, is what we should be. Otherwise, we have to be in support.
Councillor Wilson.
I haven't got a question, I've got an opinion.
I will be lenient.
Well, are we in debate?
Yes, I'll.
I think this is just a joke. If you go to the first page, Appendix 2, our standard is 11.3 for drinking water, and the District Health Board is, and in this district everywhere, is encouraging to be 6.9, which is 50%. That's what is acceptable, 50%. If you go down to the third paragraph, 0.87, and all this stuff about significant, maybe, perhaps, and if you go down, if you eat I Googled spinach, lettuce, beets and carrots this morning, and by golly, you've got to drink a lot of water at 6.9 to equal one serving of spinach. I mean, the nitrates in our vegetables are huge compared to the water. 0.87 compared to 11.3, if you think about it, perhaps Liz will look up the percentage.
Poor old Liz.
It's so small. The next page, they've got some graphs. Number of sites, but it doesn't say what the nitrate levels are. I mean, you can do anything with a graph. Have they gone up 1%? Have they gone up 10%? It doesn't give you any it's got the number of sites, but it hasn't got the actual nitrate increase. And then the next page, it's got below 0.87 and above 0.87. I think the Rangitata River is about 1.5, 1.4. And we consider it super low. Once you get into this district, some of the bad wells are 15, 18%. Well, where does 0.87? It would mean virtually all our wells for drinking water in this district that we supply urban or district communities is well below the 6.9. If we've got to be below 0.87, there's going to be nowhere in Canterbury virtually that in this district we can drink. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And this business about blue baby syndrome, you asked Mr. Humphreys when was the last blue baby, and he said, well, perhaps it'll be 22 years ago now, but there's most likely more I haven't heard of. So, I mean, it's nitrates and blue babies is not a direct influence. The baby has to have an intestinal infection for the nitrate water to enter. So healthy people, healthy babies are quite happy at 6.9 because that's half the international record. I think this should be thrown out utterly and completely. It'll be a witch hunt, as we know. Nitrates nowadays are just a witch hunt by the do-gooders of this world, and I don't think this council should have anything to do with it.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Price.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Councillor Wilson, we do have something to do with it because we have responsibility for the drinking water across this district. And again, I would reiterate what Councillor Reveley has said. Let's look at the suggested actions. Why would we not want more information? Why would we not want more research done when the Ministry for the Environment have stated that they have insufficient data? Why would we not make sure that we are in that safe space? And if you are so clear about it, then I wouldn't have thought it would be a problem. All it's asking for is that we do some research.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you are happy, I would like to move 5.2.2b in supporting Christchurch City Council for the Local Government New Zealand AGM on the 7th of July, that additional research into the drinking water standard for nitrate. And the reason I'm doing so is the Four Waters program and all of the programs that Christchurch City Council have listed in here repeatedly refer to quantity and quality of water. And one of the issues with quality of water is the nitrate component. And it's hard to have clarity without the research, and all the Christchurch City Council is doing is asking for support for Local Government New Zealand to put to central government, let's do some research. So for that reason, I'm happy to move the motion.
Councillor Brown.
And I'm happy for that reason to second it.
Thank you. Any further questions or debate? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? No. Carried. Okay. Councillor Reveley, this time. Thank you.
Second.
Councillor Bell, seconds. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
Yes.
Great. Gordon. Welcome, Gordon.
Good afternoon.
Anything you would like to add to your report there?
Not particularly. I'm happy to take any questions that anybody has.
Okay. So does anyone? Councillor Wilson.
Yes, in your first section on process development, updates to water meter reading data input process. What does that mean?
Through the chair. So up until a few weeks ago, the process to collect water meter readings and process through to billing for those who are charged for that service involved basically collection, entry into one spreadsheet, taking data from that spreadsheet, putting it into another system, and then going through the process of raising the charge. We've effectively taken out that section from the collection and getting it ready for processing. So that's just through automatic input, and that saves the officer time and so, money, and frees up to do other work.
The supplementary, does that include upgrading the water meters that you can read from the office, or do you have to physically read each meter? And are the new meters being put in any different to the ones that are already operating?
Through the chair, that any development within the water meter themselves is covered by service delivery, and I'm not able to answer.
Mr. McCann.
Through the chair, I can confirm that when we are putting in new meters, we are looking at making them able to be fitted with remote sensors. So further down the track, we can easily use the remote sensoring to pick up the meter reading.
Thank you. Councillor McMillan, you had your light on?
I did, different topic, and through the chair, and this could come under 6.3 communications, but when a CRM is sent through via email, is there an automatic response, or should there be a response come back for that CRM? Do you know that question, or was that be under communications?
There is a automatic response, but the whole process of responses after that is something that's being looked at across the various groups who respond to CRM. So it's work in progress in that respect.
Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my first question is in regards to cemetery process and the loading of headstone images. And I'm wondering if, when you've talked about the recently completed, does that mean that all of the headstone images have been loaded now?
Through the chair, that comment doesn't actually refer to the headstone images. That's actually improvement within the officers and management of the cemetery processes, be they internment, be they plot registration, be they headstone applications.
So supplementary, is there a separate work program in regards to the outward-facing component of cemetery records?
Through the chair, all the records that we have been provided for have been posted onto the website and the cemetery search. They are not all there, but all the information that we have been provided has been posted.
Councillor Revley.
Right, back to water meters. The number. Can we have a copy of the number of water meters that are in the district, because they've been put in over the years, and the number that are actually read and the areas they're in? Because looking at some of the accounts, you can go to the Mayfield Reserve. There's 5 metres there, so there seems to be a wee problem there. So is there any chance of seeing if they've got people who've got meters in? We're obviously not. Are we reading them all?
Mr. McCann.
Through the chair, the ones that are read are the ones for commercial properties or residential C properties where we do use the readings to charge. Where in other areas where we've put in meters, it's purely for operational purposes and identifying leaks and just managing the network. So they aren't read for any charging purposes, it's just for operational use. But I can provide figures for you on how many we have installed and how many are being read.
Because a number of years ago we installed, every new house had one on at one stage. Every new house had one on at one stage when back, 7 or 8 years. So I was just wondering how many of those meters we're actually reading now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that information available. And
I can obtain that information for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rawlinson, you had your light on.
Sorry, mine was just in regard to Liz's question about the CRMs. If it was SnapSend Solve, you certainly get an email back within 6 hours to say it's been received and acknowledged.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, mine is a question on page 8. I see we've upgraded to version 2016 of Microsoft Office. I'm just personally interested, did you have much problem, were we on 2010 before, or as somebody who's still on 2010, I think our tablets are on 10, are they? How did you get on with 16?
Through the Chair, the current version is 2013. The rollout of 2016 has only been done to a small group, and that'll be rolled out across the organisation by July. So, in answer to, did we have any problems or have we had any problems as yet? No.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gordon, I'm just reading back on page 7, process development, the very last narrative around community facility booking facility. So could you just help me understand what is the scope that you're looking at and which facilities exactly are we referring to?
Through the Chair, yeah, that's not very well described. The community facility booking, so we are looking, investigating for an online tool so that residents, ratepayers, can make bookings for public facilities that we offer. For example, that could be sports fields, that could be the chessboard, in the centre of the CBD, and the like. So that's what we're investigating for an online tool, and we'll be bringing back our findings through to the leadership team.
And supplementary, please. Is your intended scope including reserve boards and memorial halls as well?
Not at this stage, no. They have been excluded.
Balmoral Hall, though, would, as a...
The Balmoral Hall would be included, yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Any further questions of Gordon? Councillor Urquhart.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to Gordon. I see you've done 20,600 building resource consents and property files, which is great. You're getting well through them. That's a pretty major sort of a thing. Are you able, if you want a LIM report, are you able just to put in the property number and it come out, or is this sort of something separate to that?
Through the Chair, this is something separate to that. You can apply for a LIM online, but it is you don't receive it. You can receive it back via email or post if you wish, but it's not generated on the fly, so to speak. This is something that would be a future development that we might look at.
Thank you. It looks like...
Can I just make one final comment? Over the last couple of days, there's been an Association of Local Government Information Managers Conference for information managers and GIS, and you may have seen, you may not have seen that one of our team members, Leonie Robinson, came away with the award of the IRM Professional of the Year 2019, which is a great result for her.
Just on behalf of Council, can you pass on our congratulations, please? It was a great achievement, and yeah, I was rapt when I did read that, so yeah, thank you.
Certainly, thank you.
Okay. 6.2, strategy and policy. Tony. Welcome. Anything further you would like to add before we open the floor for questions?
You, through the chair, no, I don't think there is too much more I can add. You see me quite frequently, but happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you. And councillors, we did progress the annual plan today, so that's good. Any further questions there for Tony? Hey. No, look at that. Don't go far, because I'm assuming that you're doing 6.2.2 external submissions. This is a new item that's in here, councillors, and it's more of an information thing, just looking at the external submissions that staff have put in. So, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. That was when I was poised to hit my button. I was a bit premature on 6.2.2. Just in regards to the LINs and Creative New Zealand, I went looking for them online and I could not see them on the website. Is the intention that they will go on the website?
Through the chair, yes it is. It's just come down to timing and resource at the moment.
Any further questions, councillors?
So through you, Mr Chairman, to Tony. Tony, I imagine that a lot of external submission opportunities come up. How are you going to differentiate between what you do and don't submit on, and what is the measure of relevance for the Ashburton District Council?
Chair, that is a stellar question, and I would never presume to make that decision. So I look to my trustee leadership team and take our Chief Executive's advice as to whether it's something we should be or shouldn't be involved. And then we also at that stage have the discussion whether it's a management level submission or whether it's to come back to full council for sign-off.
Thank you. Great, thank you. 6.3, communications. Ruben's chance to shine under his own star.
Good morning. Good. Glad we don't have that forward-facing camera just yet. Through you, Chair and councillors, seeing that the topic of live streaming has come up, I did want to provide a little bit of an update as far as the numbers that we're experiencing. I believe Councillor Price mentioned that the perception is that it's been received well, and the numbers will show that. Since we started live streaming on both Facebook and YouTube platform, we have an average or an approximation of about 25,000 minutes viewed with the various audiences that are tuning in. 80% of that, or close to 80% of that traffic viewing our live coverage actually happens after the live event has completed, so it's more on-demand viewing, with the balance of that 20% folks who are engaged during the live meeting. I've seen just an official number. We've got about 20 to 25 on average active viewers during the live stream. Some would argue those are staff, but we do have comments coming through the live feed, so we are aware that folks are watching on the from home. Happy to answer any questions in regards to the live streaming.
Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Rawlinson.
Am I allowed to make a comment?
Yes, you may.
As I lay in my hospital bed last week, it was great to be able to watch environmental services and service delivery. I wasn't live, but it was within an hour or two, and it was great to be able to do that and think, well, I know what everybody's doing because I'm able to watch it. So I could see the benefits of it straight away. Great.
Thank you.
I might add that we had a global audience with Paul tuning in from Italy during his holiday, so that's working well for our stats.
He couldn't leave us, you see.
Yeah.
Councillor Lover.
I was just going to ask, how soon can you have a forward-facing one? Because if you're actually sitting watching live streaming, all you see is the heads sitting there and the bald heads and that, and I think it would be nice to see the faces.
Yeah. Are you
Am I thinning out?
Yeah.
It would be
we-
nice to see the faces of the people talking down there.
Sure. Council has given us the go-ahead to do a 6-month trial of the current proposed solution, which was a budget solution, just for a trial basis. That period is expected to end in September, at which point we'll come back and revisit and then consider any additional options as it relates to improving on the technical requirements and those different features that you're talking about.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. Not on the live streaming, but can I ask a question? And I asked this of Mr. Guthrie last week about boil water notices and whether it was whether you're using antenna. I know there's quite a few Methven Springfield people who didn't know whether the boil water notice was on or off because they normally got the antenna notification. So I got a couple of calls about that and just wondering if you could answer that for me.
Absolutely.
Please.
Happy to. It's one of the items that I wanted to update you on. No, that's okay. No, it's a good segue. Through you, Chair, we have we've certainly gotten not only feedback from council but also from the public in regards to our alert notifications, and we're seriously looking at that. We have a draft report that unfortunately wasn't ready for this meeting, but we will be presenting it at the next council meeting for discussion, just to give you an update on what we're doing. But it's more of what we're doing from a mobile strategy perspective and all the different digital communication tools that we have, which do include alert notifications for boil water notices. We are making we are planning some significant changes and improving in that space. We've met with Andrew Guthrie as well to discuss some of the needs that they have within their department to be able to efficiently and effectively get that information out. And you'll be updated on the progress that we're making in that effort, but we're trying to not only simplify the ability for folks to opt in to receive these notifications, but also ensure the timeliness and frequency of the notifications so that they're relevant. I hope that answers that.
Thank you. Any further questions?
One more item. We've been trying to, over the last several months, the goal has been to try and tell our story at council by various projects that we've got going on, and I'm hoping that the community has seen we have picked up on our news stories on a week-to-week basis, and because of the fact we initiated a monthly newsletter that's gone out twice now, which offers up a recap of a lot of the stories that we're working on. Really happy to see that some of the media, even regional and nationally, has picked up some of the stories that we've shared out. So we're continually trying to make some improvements in that space as well to get the appropriate message out of how great Ashburton is.
Great.
And that's all I've got.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. 6.4, finance. Just be gentle. Oh, no, look. He's going to be saved. I was going to say, let's be gentle on Paul because he's only been back a few days, but we're okay. So does anything further you'd like to add to the report?
No, I think it's all there. I would just add the procure to pay. We do have our Tech One consultants on site now, so that is moving forward.
Excellent, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, it can't be that easy. Okay, don't go away because we're going to do the variance report. So, okay, councillors, 6.4.2, variance report. Everyone's operating off of hard copies, so I'll be able to just go through this page by page. If anyone has any questions, just put your light on and I will stop. So, page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You are going to let her off lightly. 13, 14. Oh, I see a thing. 15. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not quite with a straight run. Just in regards to the reserve boards and the reason for the variance, I'm looking at 224,000 favourable, and the statement is that the majority of this relates to Mount Somers for a 200,000 budget for toilets, showers, and a new camp kitchen. You've contacted the reserve board for comment, and at the time of writing this report, you've not yet had a response. Just wondering if anything's changed, if you've had a response since.
Not a formal one, but I did talk to Councillor Reveley this morning, so if you wanted to add anything into that, you're welcome to.
Peter, can you please turn your light on? Thank you.
A few things around this one. Not sure how much I can give you. The staff are still working on some matters. Some of this is around the lease of a piece of land up there, which has taken 6 years. It's still not completed. There was an account sent out to a person which was leasing a piece of land, so that meant that the people tendering for the land had to wait a year. So there's still some issues around this. That $200,000 was almost dropped fairly quickly when they found that the deficit they would have between having the present one and over the last time and going forward was going to be in advance of 60,000, never recoverable. That this project had to sit there and get through the signing off of the reserve, the status of it. The staff have been working with DOC, who weren't very helpful in saying what they were doing was transferring a piece of land, which wasn't satisfactory to them. So there's a few issues with this one. So there's a reserve board next week. I think they'll pass the first piece of it. There's a piece of land there that's going to be have to given to or signed over to a piece of land signed over to a person with $1 a year rent if called upon. So all those things are still in the reserve. So it probably should have been in the other part, but I spoke to it this morning, and so some of that will be able to come up because it will be resolved. But it's still that 200,000 will be have to be revised because of the income, which will never come to the board.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm just seeking to understand how we got here. Are you saying, Councillor Reveley, that the board approved a capital budget for the 18-19 year, and now they've considered that they don't want to continue with the project?
When the long-term plan was out, that's correct, and now the project will have to be deferred until this process is finished, and it will have to be redrafted because of the 60,000 plus a few other pieces around it, which are no longer available to them. So, if you haven't got probably a third of the income to do a project, and also in the long-term plan, a project of the part of the public toilets there was also now no longer on the long-term plan. So, the fair few things have changed since they first drew that budget up. So we'll work through it and get there. They're annoyed, but it's no good getting annoyed. Let's get to the facts before we deal with it. So this had to show in here because that's what the staff imagined, that the loan was have to be drawn up. So it just can't be crossed off because the job hasn't been done.
Thank you for that. Councillor Brown, you had your light on? Yep. Yep, thank you. So, anything else on page 15? 16? 17? 18? Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 18, Parks and Reserves, exercise and playground equipment has been ordered and work on the War Memorial and Barring Square West is to commence shortly. I'm really sorry if I missed a meeting. What work on the War Memorial?
Was talked about in the annual plan.
It's some upgrade work. I don't know the exact details. I can forward it on to you.
Upgrade is adequate at this time. Thank you.
Yes. Councillor Malcolm.
Just to reiterate something Gary said, I've always asked for a power.
I think that is one of the upgrades stirring my memory from when we talked about it at the annual plan time. Nothing else, page 18, 19, 20. And there was a replacement page 20, so everyone should have that. Page 21,
No, I'm on page 20, please,
page
Mr
20,
Chairman.
sorry.
So we went from our earlier version of unfavourable, and we don't have a U at the end, so I presume it's now favourable, or has the U been missed off the animal control?
The U's been missed off.
So it should be 97,883 unfavourable.
Unfavourable.
Correct, great. Thank you for that clarification.
Same reason, isn't it? Yeah. Turn page 20 twice. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and 28. Oops. Great. Right, thank you for that. That was very painless. First, oh, sorry,
That's right.
Councillor Rawlinson.
That's right, thank you. I've got a question. It takes us right back to page 2.
Of,
It's probably not a difficult question. I just see in the bottom right-hand corner of the blocks there that we've paid 110% of Four Coast loans repaid. So we've obviously repaid some early.
well, more than we had to, but
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
wasn't early, it was due. I believe that was that 5 million that we repaid just before you went on holiday. And I think that initially it was going to be rolled and we paid it instead.
Thank you.
good. Thank you.
And another question,
Ah, yes. Councillor.
sorry. Page 22, it's mentioned here camera and shade communication technology equipment. Is that the one we're using for the live streaming? Is that the camera we're talking about?
Under community relations, the 16,900.
Yes. Is that the one?
That. Ruben, was that for this equipment in here?
That is correct. That was for the live streaming
Yeah.
solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors. Item 6.5, governance and business support. MEF and Community Board. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thanks, Mr Chairman. I see we've got a supplementary.
That's the Memorial Hall Board. We'll deal with that in a couple of, it'll be
fair
under
enough.
6.5.3. Okay. Nothing up for the MEF and Community Board. 6.5.2, the Ashburton Airport Users Group. No questions there? Oh, yes, Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask, is there a form people fill out? Is it a verbal or is there a process for reporting? Because I know there is the odd kind of incident out at
So
the
you're
airport.
talking near misses, are you?
Yes,
Is there a
the near
reporting
misses.
form for near
Is
misses?
there a process for people to go through there and who do they report to?
Colin, you got an answer for that, or?
So it depends what the incident is. If it's one that involves the CAA, they report directly to the CAA. But what we've asked is that all incidences are reported back to us, because some of them are quite minor and they don't go to the CAA. So we get a list of them all now. So we didn't have that process in place in the past, but we've got it now.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, Councillor Wilson, the Reserve and Memorial Hall Boards, you have a question?
Thanks, Mr Chairman. It said this air conditioning to be put in from the board's existing budget. We're just putting a new roof on there. I thought, how come they've got spare money to put air conditioning in? We're spending a lot of money on that.
There's
It's Tynwald we're putting the new.
Thought we're spending money
no,
on.
Mount Hutt Memorial
Mount Hutt.
Hall's not getting a new roof, so they budgeted about 50,000 for some air conditioning. They did that in the LTP, and they have had a couple of workshops and with council staff, etc., to get to this total and to work out the best placement for the air conditioning. So it's been quite a process.
Did it not go through the grants? Was it just go through finance?
It went through the long-term plan.
Can I move that recommendation?
Do you have a question,
There's no
Peter? Or
questions.
Yeah, no, there is a question in there. The Mayfield Hall are doing much the same thing, and I just wondered, will it come through this committee for a consent to put in an air conditioning in their hall?
if they have the budget, I assume that.
Well, it's come from they have a wee bit of money, and it's come from later on we'll see it in the grants. So I just wonder why this one has to come through here, that's all.
Mr Chairman, through you, my understanding, and I stand to be corrected, is that the the Mount Hutt Memorial Hall Board is a subcommittee of Finance and Business Support. That is the reason it comes here. Is that right, Mr Brake?
I think, yeah, it's a subcommittee of council. If they budgeted for air conditioning and had the money in the LTP, then technically they don't need to come through here. But because it's such a significant amount, it's probably reasonable to at least inform council that that's what they're doing.
Yep. Any further questions?
It's probably back to it, but it's a recommendation to this committee what it needed to be, and that's because of the 39 or 40,000. It was significant.
Yeah, again, I repeat that it technically didn't need to come through here. If you've got the budget and it was specific for the project that was in the LTP, when council tick off the LTP, then they've actually approved the board to do that.
So do we need to do this?
So the board at its meeting the other day have made a recommendation to this committee, rightly or wrongly, so to complete the process for them, we'll take it through.
We're just working on some of the others I know that are probably going to come forward where they need to go. So I'll get them to send them in, and the staff will sort out and do the drafting.
Thank you. Basically what we're doing here is reiterating what we've done in the long-term plan, because it is a significant amount of money. So, Councillor McMillan.
Can I then move the recommendation that the quote be accepted from Stewart and Holland for air conditioning units at a cost of $39,795.30 plus GST?
Councillor Price, you're seconding that?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further questions or debate? Okay, I'll put that sorry. Right. I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Lovett.
I've just got the minutes here finally of the Linford Hall on the reserve land, so just table that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You will pass those on to Philippa, so thank you. Yep. We also have a letter of thanks there from the Nelson Fire Hay Convoy organiser, thanking council for sponsorship. I'm assuming through you, Mr Chief Executive, that was a Chief Executive's decision to approve that?
Yes, it was.
Madam Mayor.
And I'd just like to add that was in discussion with myself as well, and it was a small fee to assist with the response in Marlborough, so I was happy to support it.
Councillor Malcolm.
And who was the recipient?
The convoy that went taking hay.
Convoy,
yes,
right?
yes.
Private operator, that's why.
Well, no, it was the organiser of the convoy, and he would have then distributed to whoever was appropriate. So it was in the form of fuel rather than money.
Yes,
anyway,
yes, it was. We contributed. Look, it turned out to be around about half the fuel cost of one truck out of the convoy.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Just an audit question, I guess, for Mr Brake. So, Mr Brake, we've talked in the past about our grants committee and the fact that we approve a number of grants and we have a budget for grants, but then there are small incidentals like the one we've just discussed that come up. In our future annual reports, are those going to be picked up and also included under the grants and donations page?
Through you, Mr Chairman, they certainly will be if people have coded them to the right place, being a grants code. So we go through the grants code and extract everything out of those grants codes. There's at least 2 of them, discretionary and ordinary grants, and they get put into the annual report.
Thank you. And that's a good segue into item 6.6, community grants assessments. Okay, welcome again. So we do have some recommendations here, councillors. So does anything you would like to add, Tony, before we take questions?
No, nothing at this stage, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bell.
I would like to move the recommendation that the Creative Community Scheme Assessment Committee Terms of Reference be adopted.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of staff before I just take that recommendation?
I do, please.
Yes.
So just seeking to better understand, the terms of reference have been modified to remove the art gallery representative. My understanding is that position's been there some time. I'm just seeking to better understand what the thinking was, what the discussion was at the table.
Thank you. Through the chair. So the terms of reference had a specific reference to the Ashburton Art Gallery. Oh, no, sorry. The original terms of reference didn't have that, but the question was raised to the Creative Communities Committee if they should have been. And then that led us on quite a journey to find out the answer. In short, no, they don't need to be a specific member, but obviously they're always welcome to join.
Thank you for the explanation.
Okay. Any further questions? Councillor Price.
I'd just like to add an observation that one of the community members is actually a staff member at the art gallery at the moment.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions, Councillor Bell has moved the recommendation that the terms of reference be adopted. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Price?
I'll second that.
Any further debate? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Now, there is another recommendation on page 13 that the minutes of the Creative Community Fund Assessment Committee meeting held on the 9th of April 2019 be received. Councillor Price was first, Councillor Brahm was second.
I would like to move as you read it out.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Brahm has seconded that. Is there any... I'll put that motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. It's just we're going to go... So I will now close the open part of the meeting and we'll break for... I'll come back at 25 past on that clock, so you get just over 10 minutes. Thank you.